Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel, Meetings Assistance for Jehovah's Witnesses. I hope you're all doing well. In this video, we're going to analyze and answer the questions from this week's Watchtower study. This study corresponds to the week of September 29th to October 5th, and its title is, Can You Keep Learning from the Basic Teachings? Without further ado, let's begin. Question 1. How did you feel when you learned the truth? When I learned the truth, I felt great joy and peace. Understanding who Jehovah is, what really happens to the dead, and the hope of a future in a paradise on earth gave me inner peace. I no longer felt afraid of the future. Instead, I gained the assurance that my life could have an eternal purpose. Additional comments. Isaiah 42:8 highlights that Jehovah wants us to worship Him by knowing His name. Learning that God has a personal name made me feel I could have a closer relationship with Him. Just like when you know a good friend's name, it strengthens your bond. Ecclesiastes 9:10 explains that the dead are not conscious. This teaching brought me comfort because I realized that my loved ones who have died are not suffering but resting, and Jehovah has the power to bring them back to life in the future. Question 2. Why do we know that even mature Christians can benefit from the basic teachings of the Bible? Even mature Christians can benefit from the basic teachings because they keep us firm and protected. Although we already know the truth, we need to review it so we don't forget and can resist negative influences. Additional comments. 2 Peter 1:12-13 shows that Peter encouraged established Christians to keep recalling the basics. This teaches us never to take our knowledge for granted, because reviewing it strengthens our faith and reminds us of what matters most. 2 Peter 2:1-3 warns that there will always be dangers like false teachers. Reviewing the basic teachings helps us detect and reject such influences, ensuring that we remain faithful to Jehovah without being misled. Question 3. Explain with an example why all Christians must continue meditating on the basic teachings of the Bible. All Christians must meditate on the basic teachings because we can always discover new applications. As our circumstances change over time, reflecting on what we already know helps us find more practical and deeper ways to apply it in daily life. Additional comments. Hebrews 5:14 shows that solid food comes with practice. Meditating on the basics, even after years, allows us to develop discernment and apply the teachings to new situations. Psalm 1:2-3 says that meditating on Jehovah's law gives stability and spiritual success. This means that even simple truths strengthen and keep us productive in God's service when we think about them over and over again. Subheading: Jehovah is the Creator. Question 4. How has learning that Jehovah is the Creator changed our lives? Learning that Jehovah is the Creator has given our lives real meaning. We no longer believe we're here by chance but understand that we have a purpose and that God cares for us because He knows us better than anyone. Additional comments. Hebrews 3. For emphasizes that Jehovah is the builder of all things. This makes us appreciate life and the planet more and motivates us to care for what He created, recognizing His wisdom. Psalm 100. 3 reminds us that we are Jehovah's workmanship and belong to Him. Knowing this gives us confidence, because it means we are not alone or aimless but under the loving care of our Creator. Question 5. What lesson does knowing that Jehovah is the Creator teach us? Knowing that Jehovah is the Creator teaches us to be humble. Since He made us and has perfect knowledge, we should trust that He always knows what's best, even when we don't fully understand His decisions. Additional comments. Job 38. 1-4 shows how Jehovah reminded Job of his role as Creator. This teaches us not to focus only on our problems but to recognize that God has a broader and just perspective. Isaiah 45. 9-12 compares Jehovah to a potter and us to clay. This illustration reminds us that questioning God makes no sense, since He is the one lovingly and wisely shaping our lives. Question 6. Why is it good to meditate on the greatness of the Creator? See also the pictures. It's good to meditate on the greatness of the Creator because it helps us not to rely too much on our own opinions. Remembering that His wisdom is far greater than ours keeps us humble and helps us seek His guidance instead of depending solely on ourselves. Additional comments. Isaiah 40.22 depicts Jehovah as the one who rules over the entire universe. Thinking about His greatness reminds us how small we are and how necessary it is to rely on His direction. Isaiah 55. 8-9 explains that Jehovah's thoughts are much higher than ours. Meditating on this strengthens our trust that His decisions will always be better than any human judgment. Question 7. What helped Rahila accept a recent change in the organization? Rahila was able to accept a change in the organization because she meditated on the fact that Jehovah is the Creator. That reminded her that He guides His people with wisdom, and although some adjustments may seem strange at first, we can trust that they come from God. Additional comments. Romans 11:33 highlights how deep God's wisdom and judgments are. This helps us understand that, even if we don't immediately comprehend certain changes, Jehovah knows what's best for His people. Romans 11:36 shows that everything comes from Jehovah and is done for His glory. Accepting organizational adjustments with this view strengthens our confidence that we're being guided by His Spirit. Subheading: Why God Allows Suffering. Question 8. How have we benefited from learning why God allows suffering? Learning why God allows suffering has given us comfort and confidence. Understanding that Jehovah is not the cause of suffering but has a purpose in allowing it draws us closer to Him and helps us maintain hope that suffering will soon end. Additional comments. Proverbs 19:3 says that some people blame God for their problems. Reflecting on this verse helps us avoid the same mistake, understanding that Jehovah is never responsible for human pain, instead, He provides the way out. 2 Peter 3:9 15 emphasizes that Jehovah is patient because he wants more people to come to know him and be saved. This changes our perspective. Rather than thinking God is indifferent to suffering, we see that he is acting out of love, giving everyone the chance to benefit from his purpose. Question 9. In what situations is it good to review the reasons why Jehovah allows suffering? It's good to review why Jehovah allows suffering when we face problems, injustice, or the loss of a loved one. At such times, remembering his reasons helps us stay patient, faithful, and confident that he will soon eliminate suffering forever. Additional comments. Habakkuk 1. 2, 3 shows that even a faithful prophet wondered why Jehovah delayed acting against injustice. This teaches us that having such questions in times of pain is natural, but it also reminds us that trust in Jehovah always brings peace and answers in due time. Psalm 34. 19 stresses that although the righteous face many hardships, Jehovah always rescues them in one way or another. Meditating on this strengthens us so we don't feel abandoned but recognize that God sustains us through every trial and has prepared a future free from suffering. Question 10. How did Anne manage to cope with the loss of her mother? Anne managed to cope with the loss of her mother by remembering that Jehovah is not the cause of suffering and that he will soon end everything that harms us. By meditating on the resurrection hope and God's purpose, she was able to find inner peace even amid such deep pain. Additional comments. John 5. 28, 29 promises that those in the memorial tombs will come out. This hope of resurrection gives real comfort to those who have lost loved ones because it assures us that the separation will not be forever. 2 Corinthians 1. 3, for calls Jehovah, the God of all comfort. By turning to him in prayer and meditating on his promises, we can receive a peace that goes beyond human understanding, just as Anne experienced. Question 11. Why does knowing why Jehovah allows suffering motivate us to keep preaching? Knowing why Jehovah allows suffering motivates us to preach because we understand that his patience has a purpose, to give more people the chance to know him and be saved. Preaching is a way to show love for others and to cooperate with God in his work before the end comes. Additional comments. 2 Peter 3. 11 reminds us that understanding Jehovah's patience should move us to live holy and devoted lives. One practical way to do this is by enthusiastically participating in the preaching work. 1 Corinthians 3. 9 says that we are God's fellow workers. This highlights the privilege we have in sharing the good news, not only giving hope to others but also working alongside Jehovah in fulfilling his purpose. Let's move on to the third subheading. We are living in the last days. Question 12. When we see the prophecy about the last days being fulfilled, what are we convinced of? When we see what the Bible foretold about the last days being fulfilled, we are convinced that God's word is trustworthy. The way people act today confirms that we are living in that time, which strengthens our faith that Jehovah will fulfill everything he has promised. Additional comments. 2 Timothy 3. 1-5 describes people's attitudes in the last days. Seeing these traits become more and more common reinforces our confidence in the accuracy of Bible prophecy. 2 Timothy 3:13-15 assures us that wickedness will continue to grow but also encourages us to stay firm in the truth. This convinces us that holding on to the Bible's teachings is the best protection during these critical times. Question 13. What is something good for us to ask ourselves? It's good to ask ourselves whether our goals and priorities show that we truly put Jehovah first. We live in a limited time, so we must use our energy, time, and resources wisely to store up treasures in heaven, instead of focusing only on material things. Additional comments. Luke 12:15-21 shows that the rich man was foolish because he focused on material things and neglected spiritual ones. This reminds us that life can change in an instant, so it's urgent to focus on what has eternal value. Matthew 6:20-21, in harmony with the lesson, teaches that where our treasure is, there our heart will be also. If our goals are tied to serving Jehovah, we show that we value what truly matters. Question 14. As Mickey's experience shows, why is it good to meditate on the evidence that we are living in the last days? Meditating on the evidence that we are living in the last days helps us make wise decisions and focus on what truly matters. Mickey's experience shows that by remembering this system has little time left, we can adjust our personal goals to reach spiritual achievements that bring genuine satisfaction and lasting blessings. Additional comments. 2 Timothy 3:1-5 reminds us that people's behavior in the last days would be a clear sign that we are living in critical times. Keeping this prophecy in mind encourages us not to put our trust in this system but to prioritize spiritual goals that will never lose their value. Matthew 6:33 teaches that seeking first God's kingdom and righteousness guarantees that we will have what we need. Mickey proved this by choosing a path that allowed her to pioneer and serve more fully, showing that when we trust in Jehovah, He blesses us more than we could imagine. Question 15. What does James' example teach us? See also the pictures. James' example teaches us not to get discouraged when someone rejects the good news, even if it's a close family member. People can change over time. James didn't believe in Jesus at first, but after the resurrection, he became a faithful and active Christian. This encourages us to be patient and to keep preaching with confidence. Additional comments. John 7:5 shows that Jesus' brothers did not believe in him while he was on earth. This highlights that even someone who witnessed his works and teachings firsthand needed more time to be convinced. We learn that initial rejection doesn't mean the person will never accept the truth. Jehovah can work in their heart at the right time. Galatians 2:9 presents James as a pillar of the Christian congregation. Such a remarkable change teaches us that Jehovah can transform someone who once seemed uninterested into a loyal, strong servant of faith. That's why, when preaching, we shouldn't give up on our relatives or acquaintances, because with patience and love, they might one day become a great spiritual support. Let's move on to the fourth subheading. Let's keep appreciating Jehovah's reminders. Question 16. How have you benefited from Jehovah's reminders? See also the box, use it to help others. We benefit from Jehovah's reminders because they strengthen our faith, keep us focused on what's essential, and help us teach others more effectively. Although some talks, articles, or videos are designed for those who don't yet know the truth, they also strengthen us by reminding us of basic truths and helping us express them with more confidence. Additional comments. Psalm 19:7 says, Jehovah's reminders are trustworthy, they make the inexperienced wise. This shows that these reminders not only benefit those who are just learning the truth but also help those of us who have been in the faith longer to remain firm and have the right attitude. These reminders strengthen our love for Jehovah and increase our confidence that His word is true. For example, when we listen to a public talk explaining why we can trust the Bible, we don't just think about those hearing it for the first time, we also reinforce our own conviction. In addition, these reminders train us as teachers. They provide examples, comparisons, and simple arguments that we can use in the ministry or in conversations with family and friends. That way, we learn to present Bible truths clearly and persuasively. Question 17. In what situations can the basic teachings of the Bible help you? The Bible's basic teachings help us in many life situations. They strengthen us when we face problems, keep us humble when it's hard to accept new instructions, and remind us that we're living in the last days, motivating us to use our time and resources wisely. Thanks to these reminders, we can make wise decisions and remain loyal to Jehovah. Additional comments. Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us not to rely on our own understanding. This applies when it's difficult to accept new instructions or adjustments in the organization. Remembering that Jehovah is the one directing us helps us be humble and trust His superior wisdom. James 1:2-4 explains that trials strengthen our faith. In times of suffering, basic teachings, such as knowing that Jehovah is not the cause of evil and that He will soon end pain, help us maintain patience and firm hope. 2 Timothy 3:1-5 warns about the common attitudes in the last days. This reminder motivates us to evaluate how we use our time and resources, making sure we focus on storing up spiritual, not material, treasures. Now let's answer the review questions titled, What practical lessons can we learn from these basic teachings? Question 1. Jehovah is the Creator. This truth teaches us to remain humble and to trust Jehovah's guidance. By meditating on His greatness and wisdom, we remember that His way of seeing things is always superior to ours. In practice, this helps us accept with faith any instruction that comes from the organization, even if it seems difficult at first. Question 2. The reasons why God allows suffering. Knowing this gives us comfort and strengthens us during trials. We remember that Jehovah doesn't cause pain but allows it temporarily for just reasons, such as giving people time to come to know Him. In practice, this teaching motivates us to be patient, to trust that Jehovah will soon end suffering, and to use this explanation in our preaching to help others who feel confused or angry with God. Question 3. We are living in the last days. This moves us to maintain a sense of urgency and to put Jehovah first in our lives. In practice, it means reviewing our goals and priorities, spending more time in preaching, personal study, and supporting the congregation, instead of focusing only on material things or projects of this world that will soon pass away. Well, these have been the answers for this week's Watchtower study. I hope they are very helpful to you, my dear brothers and sisters. We'll see each other next week with a new video. I send you a warm hug, and may Jehovah bless and protect you always.